Hey guys, welcome to this week's FAQ and Freebie Friday. Now before we begin, if you're new to this channel, these videos are all about answering your health-related questions. So if you have a question concerning your health in general, diet, nutrition, herbs, supplements, really anything regarding health and wellness, and you would like our help in answering your questions, all you have to do is leave your questions in the comment section below, and we'll be answering those based on popularity, the questions that we feel be most beneficial to the group overall, and of course, questions that we are capable of answering. And something else really great about these videos is that every week from that comment section, we select one lucky person to win a free bag of tonic herbs or medicinal mushrooms. Now, even if you don't have a health question for us this week, but you're interested in winning some free herbs or mushrooms, all you have to do in order to be entered to win is simply give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet already, and then just drop any comment in the comment section below. And with all that being said, let's get to this week's questions. Alright, so taking a look at our first question, this question reads, how long does it take to heal an enlarged thyroid gland? Okay, so an enlarged thyroid gland, also referred to as goiter, is a condition where ultimately the thyroid gland is accumulating an excess of T4 or thyroxine, the inactive form of thyroid hormone, and either not secreting it or it's not properly being converted into the active form known as T3. And there are actually numerous causes for this. Everything from thyroiditis, or the inflammation of the thyroid gland itself, which can actually overstimulate the production of T4 in the thyroid gland, and having an excess of T4 and it accumulating the thyroid gland rather than being secreted and converted into T3. But other more rudimentary and likely causes for goiter is actually going to be an excess of estrogen and a deficiency of progesterone. So I've mentioned this before in past videos, but estrogen can actually block the secretion of thyroid hormone from the thyroid gland, and progesterone can stimulate its secretion from the thyroid gland. So either an excess of estrogen or a deficiency in progesterone can cause the thyroid gland to actually accumulate thyroxine and other thyroid hormones, which would cause the thyroid to swell or enlarge. So usually it's an excess of estrogen or deficiency of progesterone. And other than an excess of estrogen and deficiency of progesterone, it could be simple mineral deficiencies. So the important minerals for the actual production and secretion of thyroid hormone are going to be iodine, selenium, and tyrosine. So these are really important minerals to get if you want to make sure that you're producing an adequate amount of the thyroid hormone. Otherwise, your thyroid gland will likely swell up. But also keep in mind that it's actually your pituitary and your hypothalamus that dictate the rate of thyroid secretion in the production of the thyroid hormone. So it's not just a thyroid issue. Keep in mind that all of the endocrine glands are interconnected and they all are being affected by one another. So in most cases, thyroid issues are accompanied by adrenal issues and pituitary issues. So an overactivated HPA axis, which is usually stimulated by chronic stress. So any sort of chronic stress might overactivate the pituitary and the adrenal glands, which could downregulate the thyroid function and inhibit the thyroid secretion of the thyroid hormone and increase the production of TSH, or the thyroid stimulating hormone, which could contribute to goiter as well. So really, goiter is just a more severe case, I think, of hypothyroidism, and it's usually more directly tied to these basic mineral deficiencies and these hormonal imbalances, specifically a condition referred to as estrogen dominance, where estrogen's higher than progesterone. So now answering your question in regards to how long it takes, well, that is going to be incredibly variable and subjective to the person, basically depending on a couple of things. One, what is the cause of the person's goiter? Because again, there are multiple different causes. It could be an inflammatory thing. It could be a hormonal thing. It could be an adrenal issue or a stress-driven condition or cause for the goiter. So really, knowing what's causing your goiter is going to be key for knowing how to correct it and how long it's going to take. But then the other variable is going to be how educated and how disciplined is the person with the goiter. So let's say in an ideal world, you know exactly what's causing the goiter, and then you're also aware of all the various factors that are contributing to that cause. So an example, if you know your goiter is caused by estrogen dominance, or you have a progesterone deficiency or an excess of estrogen, and you're aware of all the things that affect your estrogen and progesterone levels, and then you're also disciplined in applying all those various things, you're obviously going to heal a lot sooner than somebody who is, let's say, uneducated about what affects estrogen levels and progesterone levels, and therefore that person is not going to be able to take the actual steps required to heal. So there's tons of variables, and I couldn't give you an exact timeline. But if you were to be aware of all these things and to put it into place, when the body is given what it needs to heal and the causative factors thrown out of balance are removed, the body has an incredibly ability and capacity to self-heal. So I think the body can heal pretty rapidly. I would say if you're doing everything correctly and you're addressing the true root cause, I would give it at least a couple of months. But in my experience, I had goiter when I was younger, but more recently, a couple of years ago when I had pretty bad case of hypothyroidism, it took me about a full year of doing all the right things. It took me about an entire year of eating the right way, reducing the causative stress, and even supplementing with a desiccated thyroid before my metabolic rate fully stabilized. All right, so moving along and taking a look at our second question. This question reads, what happens when a person has a hysterectomy, hormonally speaking? What are the best options to supplement to balance the hormones then? Okay, so a hysterectomy obviously is referring to the removal of the uterus. So it's a surgery or a surgical process where the uterus is removed from the female body. And there are numerous reasons that women undergo this procedure, but it's usually related to health conditions actually. So one of the big ones is uterine fibroids. So experiencing fibrosis in the uterus, which leads to pain conditions, bleeding issues, and all sorts of other reproductive and fertility issues. So the thing is that the uterus in of itself doesn't produce sex steroids or female hormones or any hormones really. It doesn't produce estrogen and progesterone. The ovaries do. But the uterus is connected to the ovaries and to the entire body. So I'd imagine that removing the uterus would cause complications elsewhere in the body. Obviously not as severe ones, but the thing is that if you look at what's happening to the hormones preceding getting a hysterectomy, that's where the problem actually is. So I don't think actually removing the uterus is going to directly lead to any sort of worsened hormonal imbalances, at least not from my understanding. However, if you've had a hysterectomy and your uterus removed, then it's probable or almost guaranteed that you've already been experiencing or dealing with hormonal imbalances previously. And the major hormonal imbalance that's usually dictating or causing uterine fibroids is estrogen dominance. So most fertility issues and sexual reproductive issues are usually caused by estrogen dominance because estrogen actually has an adverse effect on sexual function and the health and the functioning of the sexual glands, the uterus being a part of the reproductive system, whereas progesterone is very health promoting in regards to fertility health and sexual function. So usually women that have a hysterectomy have previous uterine fibroids, and that is usually preceded by estrogen dominance. So I think it's incredibly important that you take a look at So I think it's very important to consider this and look at what was causing the problems that led to the hysterectomy in the first place. And this is why surgeries in general are really not a good solution, because they just cut out one symptom of an issue and have you overlook what caused that issue in the first place. So in regards to a hysterectomy, again, one of the major reasons women get this procedure in the first place is because they're dealing with the pain, the infertility, and the reproductive issues from uterine fibroids, which is caused by previous estrogen dominance. So when you just remove the hysterectomy, you overlook the hormonal imbalance that caused the problem in the first place. So what you're gonna wanna look at in general is correcting estrogen dominance. So again, I'm not sure that a hysterectomy is going to further worsen the issue of estrogen dominance, but you can definitely start doing some things right now to correct this issue, because it's probably been going on in the body for a long time preceding the hysterectomy in the first place. So one thing I'm just going to recommend though is that you check out one of the previous FAQs where I talk about uterine fibroids and what causes those, because that's going to be something in of itself. Because even if you remove the uterus, if you have uterine fibroids, there's probably fibrosis occurring elsewhere in the body too. So you're going to want to learn about what's driving fibrosis and how to correct that issue. The short rundown is that serotonin is a key and essential player, a crucial player in the pathogenesis of fibrosis. And that's really all uterine fibroids are, little fibrotic nodules in the uterine lining. So if you correct usually the excess of serotonin, or figure out why the serotonin is chronically elevated, that is usually going to be very therapeutic for correcting fibrosis systemically. So I'd imagine that in addition to estrogen dominance, there's also an excess of serotonin. All of these stress hormones are usually elevated at the same time. So if you're experiencing fibrosis, you likely have high serotonin. If your serotonin's high, you probably know that you have high estrogen, high cortisol. So all of these hormones usually go up at once, and correcting just one of them can usually help bring down some of the other ones because, again, they're all interrelated in a nasty, vicious feedback loop. So other than bringing down serotonin, which is usually increased by stress, a lot of times gut stress, because your intestines produce most of your serotonin. And I've talked about this, I think, in that FAQ video, the strong correlation between intestinal health and the whole uterus and the bladder and that whole sexual reproductive area. These things are tightly connected. So if you're experiencing uterine fibroids, it's possible that you have some gut fibrosis or inflammation as well, which would explain the high levels of serotonin. So although it doesn't seem related, I would definitely take a look at correcting digestive issues. I'd imagine that you probably suffer from some sort of chronic, long-standing or persistent digestive issues, which could be one of the major underlying causes for the uterine fibroids and the reason that you would get a hysterectomy in the first place. So definitely check out our Perfect Digestion course. Definitely watch that other FAQ and watch any of the videos here about serotonin so you can start correcting that issue. Otherwise, the major thing you're probably going to focus on now is correcting the estrogen dominance that has been preceding and leading to the hysterectomy in the first place. So we talk about this all over the YouTube channel. We have tons of videos on how to lower estrogen and increase progesterone. So definitely be sure to watch this video and also this video. Otherwise, my basic tips that I usually give to everybody in regards to estrogen is to take a look at the environment, your diet as major sources of estrogen, and modify those places and modify those areas of your life. And also remember that one of the major reasons estrogen elevates in general is because of stress and because of liver issues. So when your liver is not working properly, it can't metabolize, break down, and solubilize and excrete estrogen in your body, so it tends to accumulate. Not to mention that estrogen is just one of the many stress hormones that increases with age. It doesn't decrease, it increases, whereas progesterone decreases. So this is a natural hormonal imbalance that occurs just with the stress of aging, but there are definitely plenty of things you can do to slow that process, correct it, and even prevent it to a certain degree. So definitely, again, reference these other videos. On regards to herbs for lowering estrogen, milk thistle is going to be beneficial, along with Chinese bitters, nettle root, and pine pollen. All of these things can be very beneficial for correcting high estrogen levels. But again, I recommend watching these other videos and maybe even checking out our healthy weight loss course for learning how to correct the hormonal imbalances in the body. So remember, the body is all connected. A lot of the times, the various symptoms that we experience, they're all rooted in similar issues, usually metabolic issues and stress issues. So improving the health of the metabolism overall will improve the health of the immune system, will improve the health of the digestive system, and these are the fundamental systems that make sure your body is healthy overall and symptom-free. All right, guys, that brings this week's FAQ and Freebie Friday to a close. Remember, if you're interested in winning some free herbs or mushrooms, all you have to do to be entered to win is give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet already, and just drop your comments and questions in the comment section below. If you're interested in learning more about the online courses or herbs I recommended throughout this video, you can find links to both of those in the description box below.